Sinaron. Sitili
Meron?
makanya sinalilon tempo ni.
Toki ale o sinaari ni kinalakin kute po na Emi yan Sonja yan Sonja o toki yo.
Toki sinaken kute e mi anuseme.
Yo awan.
Kute.
Kute.
Akasiduli kute.
Ale o toki yan mute ari kute. Pona ale o sunupi toki pona lilon wili la pona butili tawasina mi anyan Sonja li toki lili iyo pi ma Kolowato tempo pokala mi tawa ma Kolowato li pilin musi mute tan tawa ni mi wile toki e tawa ni tawasina ale nasin pi tempo toki ni la number 1 la li kama toki ni kepken toki pona tan seme la tempo toki ni li kama li suri number 2 la mi toki e ni kepken toki pona kin iyo seme li kama don tempo kulupu number 2 la mi toki kepken toki ini e ni mi toki e iyo seme tawa yan pi toki pona ala tani yan mute pi toki pona ala li lon li kute e yan Sonja e mi Kindamin Pitogini, Yan Pitokipon Ala Litoki Seme Tami. Just switching to English for a very small intermission, just so we're all aware how this talk is going to be structured. The third part will be in English, but the first 2 parts will be in Toki Pona. Throughout the sort of talk, we'll have little notes at the very bottom there that you can glance on if you're still sort of becoming acquainted with the language. And if you do not want to see those things, la uweka yo na kepekin lipukasi ano se melon ilosina. Pona, mi o open e toki. Number 1 la, mi wile toki e ni tawasina. Toki pona lisuli. Lisuli tawa kulupu pi toki pona taso ala. Ni suli sona. Kepekin toki pona la kulupu pi ale yan, you can kamasona e iyo sin. You can kamasona en nasin ano seme. Taso, nasin seme la kulupu li kamasona. Tempo mute la kulupu li kamasona kepeken tomo sona suri. Ki nasin kulupu ma. Nili suri tan yang seme yan pali li pali. Lon tomo sona suri ni tan mani. Mani li tan kulupu masuli li tawa tomo sona suli ma wawa mute en lawa mute li lon tomo sona suli mute ni la tomo sona suli ni li suli tawa sona li suli tawa toki pona kin mi pi kulupu pi toki pona li wide pana e sona tawa io ante kulupu la mi o kepeken tomo sona suri lon tempo. Li kama toki lili e ni kulupu pi toki sin ante li kepeken tomo sona suri lon nasin seme. Lon tempo pini, lon tempo poka. Nampu wana mi toki lili e kulupu pi toki epelanto. Toki epelanto la osona ni sitelen ni li tan tempo sike ni toki pona li lon ala. Toki pona li lon ala la yan li pali e sitelen ni li pana ini tawa ilo. Sinakin no kineni lon tomo sona mute suri la yan ni ken kama sona e toki epelanto lili. Tempo mute la ni li iyo 1 anu 2 taso lili lon tempo pini anu seme. Tempo ni la tomo sona mute sama ni ala li pana e sona pitoki epelanto taso sinakin kama lupin ini tomo sona zaoshan nanu zan mi ken ala kala mo pona e toki sonko la tempo sike nampa pini la yan mute tutu li lon li kamasona wawa e toki epelanto sama ni toki epelanto li iyo taso pi kamasona ona taso nili lili tan tempo sike pini nasin seme la ni ale li kama li tan ni tempo poka la yan mute pi toki epelanto li lon tomo sona suri lon tempo pini li pana e sona taso tempo ni la ona mute li kama weka e pali mani anu seme tan ni li kama suri li wile kama lape la tempo mute la tomo sona mute li kama pini taso iyo sin mute li kama suri la mi ken sona dan ni e ni ale li tan pali yan pi toki epelanto li lon tomo sona suri la ona li kama e tempo toki epelanto yan pi weka kulupu li ni ala kina sina ken looking in yang sem sina alasa Esperanto studies la io mute li kama lon ilo Google Scholar. Io mute ni litan yan pi kulupu yan kulupu pi toki Esperanto. Taso tempo poco la kulupu pi toki Esperanto li sona e ni kin lo la mute yan li suli ala sama tempo pini ka oni pali e kulupu Esperanto Studies Foundation. Kulupu ni li pana e mani tawa yan pi weka kulupu tawa ni ken alasa e sona pi toki Esperanto e io poka sama ni kulupu li suli la nasin toki pona li seme.
It's interesting. Sorry, I'd like to add something here. I think Esperanto Studies Foundation accepts proposals for other constructed languages too. So it's possible for Tokipona people to get a grant from them, if I'm not mistaken.
Sona mila ni di lon kin. Lon, only tanya no seme yambi toki Esperanto di pini toki pona li ken kama e nasin toki pi maale. Ano yan pi mute li pi toki Esperanto li aon piling wawa tawa piling suli pi yan sama no seme li wile wane e ale kulupu kebeken toki. Lani sina yambi toki pona li wile e mani da kenda ala sa sona sina li ken kama e mani tan kulupu yasa. Toki sinan la yan pi mute ala li ala sa e sona pi toki sinan tan seme yan mute pi toki sinan li lon ala tomo sona suli nila tempo mute la yan li ala sa yan pi tomo sona suli li ala sa e io pi toki sinan la on li ala sa e nasin pi kama sona tempo weka la ni ala li lon nasin pi kama sona yan nasin pi kama sona toki la yan Windsor yan Stewart li wile sona e nasin pi kama sona kalama yan Merriman li wile sona lili e piling pi kama sona taso tempo poka la sine sona ni seme ilo li kama sona lon tempo ni la sine ala sa e toki sinan lon ilo Google Scholar la io mute li toki ni nasin seme la ilo kin kama sona e io saperi suri la mi toki ni ale tan seme io tutu li lon io tu li lon kulupu pi toki Esperanto li kama lon tomo sona suri kepeken nasin ni yan mute pi toki Esperanto li kama lon tomo sona sini tan io ante seme suli kulupu pi toki Esperanto li suli mute ni la yan mute li lon li ken kepeken wawa ona pi tomo sona suri tawa ni ken suli e sona pi toki Esperanto kulupu pi toki sinan li suli ni ala taso awan la li kama e wile pari lon yan pi tomo sona suli tan ni li toki ni sina ken kama sona e nasin pi kama sona kenda yan pi sona ilo li wile ala toki ni yo kama sona e toki sonko toki kanse tan yan seme ni li ala li toki lon taso toki pi lon ala li ken pona kin tawa kama sona tani io mute ala li lon tawa ni suli la kulupu pi toki pona li wile e yan pi ala sa sona la nasin ni li ken pona mute nampa wan la o ala sa e sona pi kama sona ilo e sona pi kama sona yan o toki o ala sa e yan ni li ala sa e sona ni o toki tawa ona e lon pi toki pona o kama e ale ni
Tokipona li tokilon.
toki pona li toki lona suli la yan ante o ken sona ini la nasin seme la yan Sonja o sina kama lon pa Kolowato tani anu seme sina toki ni tawa mi lon tempo pini tempo ala la sina lon tomo sona suli li toki sama ni li io sin tawa sina anu seme
Sin ala, mi tawa tempo pini la mi tawa tomo sona suli, taso mi kama sona e toki mute, mi kama sona ala e nasin sona toki.
taso ni di tempo nampa wan ni yan pi tomo sona suli li wile sona e sida pi toki pona seme li wile e sina
Nililon.
lon la seme li kama tan ni o sona yan mute li son kan kulupu pi toki pona yan mute li mayuna ala li lili tempo ni la yan lili mute ni li lon tomo sona la lon tomo sona UC Boulder la kulupu li lon li yo e jan mute ni ona li pilin wawa tawa toki pona. Ona ale ala li sona e sona wawa e toki pona li ken kalama wawa e toki pona. Pas ona mute li lon li pilin tawa toki pona a. Lon tomo sona yusi boulder la nasin ni don tempo sike ale la yan li dipi kama sona li ken wile e yan wan. Ni ken yan ante ala tempo sike pini la tempo sike pini ala dan ni aki ko wili don la toki ala don taso tempo pini la yan sure is king li kama don on li toki e nasin toki kulupu pian pimea no kulupu mewika yan Zion Mengensha ni toki ni ilo li kama sona li kama ken kute e toki ini pian pime la tempo mute la on li kama la wawa pikute ona li sama ala tawa wawa kute pitoki ini pi yan pimea ala le vide toki don ni la yan Zion and yan Sherry's king li kama li toki tawa kulupu ni li sona pi wawa mute taso tempo sike ni la ken nami pilin sama ni ho yantuni li alasai sono pi wawa mute semela toki sono pi toki pon ni ken wawa sama ni wawa ala no seme taso awan la kulupu li wile e sina li kama e sina
Mi pilin monsuta lon tempo pi toki kulupu taso mi wile tawa tempo kulupu di mi wile toki tawa kulupu ale pi yan sona pi tomo sona suli.
lon open la mi pilin monsuta kin taso yan li toki sui mute tawa mi tu
Nili lon
yan li sui mute a
yan ale li pona lon ma Kolowato.
Seme li kama lon tempo. Mi yan Sonja li lon ma Kolowato lon tempo suno tuan. Suno number 1 la mi kama, mi moku lon poka yan, pi sona wawa. Suno number 2 la mi toki tawa kulupu. Li moku lon poka kulupu. Kina tempo sama la mun li lene suno sin ala li awan e sona ni anu seme mun li lene suno. Tempo suno sama la mien yang Sonja li lon ma Kolowato mun li lene ale ala isuno taso awan la pona lukin kina suno number 2 la kulupu pi toki pona li moku lon tempo pi open suno la mi kama weka. Mi wile kama toki e iyo musi lili mute lon tempo
Tempo suno tuan taso.
no tempo suno tuan taso na mi kena lukin e ale kama lukin e
Nili nasa mi wile toki e io ni nili semet nili sitelen kiwen suli mama pi kiwen musi ni li moli tan kiwen ona li kama anpa li moli e mama mi sona ala ni lon tempo pini nili nasa mute oko li loye sina pilin seme ona li nasa tawa mi
mi pili nasa tani sona yan li pana e sitelen ni lon poka pi tomo waso sama ni sina kama lon ma pi tomo waso no weka tan ma pi tomo waso sina number 1 sina o kama lon poka pi monsuta lusipa sama ni no seme tempo pini la yan li toki ani monsuta suli li lon poka lupa pi ma seli ike ampa la mi pili sama ni li lukin li pilin nasa no seme tani no seme lukin ona li suno ona li suno insa pi tempo pimi
oko li suno nasa la yan li kama lon ma Kolowato la ona li lukin e ni lon poka pi tomo pi ilo tawa
sama ni no seme yan pi ma Kolowato li wile e ni yan ala li sona ala yo sina kama lon ma Kolowato la o pilin monsuta
taso nili musi nili kiwen musi
kiwen musi nasa mute ona li moli e yan pali nasa lon mun li len lili e sono mi tawa la o sono kulupu pi yan lili li kama ona li lili sama ni li ken ana moku e telo nasa lon Amerika. Taso kulupu li kama li yo e ilo. Tani on li kama tani on li wile kama toki tawa sina yan Sonja o. Taso ona ale li yo e ilo pi looking suna on ken looking ni ken ana kama pakala looking.
Ilo li awen e oko yan.
Ilo awana. La mi kama don mi number one la mi and sina and kulupu li moku lon tomo lon insa tomo taso tempo pilen suno li kama la mi ale li tawa sewi tomo li lon sewi li looking e sewi e nena ale poka. Oso na mundi len ale ala isun taso walo ala li lon sewi. Kon ala li lon sewi. Nena suli ma li lon poka ale pili wawa li lon.
Nili. Tempo pi len mun la sewi li kama pimeya mute.
Taso nili kama ala oso na sitire nili tan ala mi.
Ona li iyo sama.
Taso ona li iyo sama. Yan mi ken ilo mi pilin sama ni ilo mi li wawa ala li ken ala sitire e ona mo seme. Sono li wawa pimute suli li ke. Taso nili kama da mi pilin pona li don tawa ni toki pona li
Pana
don
sitelen ni. It's just weird to see like Tokipona like on posters in a university environment. It's like unusual because like we're so, I don't know, like we're such a niche community that it's interesting, like it's weird to see on the wall like that.
Taso oso ne nili lon sinpin taso ala ilo suli li lon li ilo pisiteren tawa museme tepo mute lon li toki ni seme li lon ma see you boulder non tomo see you lon li ma taso non tomo son see you boulder seme li lon la mi en sina li luki ni li toki ni yan sone li kama li lon li toki musi mute lon yan pitamo son li pari sama ni toki pona li iyo wawa li iyo lon musi mute lon na li toki pona li toki li lon mi opini nasa ada sama la pili nasa pili tani ini tempo toki looking aleo mi kama eni yan mute li lon isa tomo la ale ala li ken lon supa ono o lon noka ona monsi tomo
Mute pi Tokipona li kama, yan mute pi Tokipona ala li kama.
Nili lon yan mute pitomo sona li kama taso kin la yan ma Kolowato la yan mute pi Tokipona li lon ona li kama li musi li toki tawa sama tempo mute la li melitonsi ken la ale li melitonsi taso wawa mute la lon yan mute li kama li musi mute li pili mute pilin pona mute li lon tan kulpo tan tonsi tan toki pona tan iyo ale ni la yan li kama toki lon mi en sina li kama toki lon pini
yan li wile sona e iyo mute tan mitu ona li lon supamonsi lon poka pi mitu li pana e wile sona mitu li pana e sona.
Yan ante li toki wile sona la mitu la mi toki sinta ni taso kin la lon pini la yan looking ale li ken toki e wile sona tawa mi tawa sina yan mute li wile toki e wile sona tempo pona li lon ala tawa ni mi ale li ken toki e sona pan li ken kute e yan ale taso musi mute la mi kama lon pini la mi kama toki e ni mi toki e se me tawa kulpu taso nampo wana mi wile toki lili e tempo moku moku li suli anu seme toki pona li suli ala sino wila li wile toki e kini ma pipili pona
mi wile yan poka mi lon tempo moku li toki e ni tawa mi tomo esun moku ni li yo e kirima pipilin pona taso yan lili taso li ken kama yo e ona mi jan lili ala, taso mi wile moku e kili mapipilin pona. Mi toki e wile mi tawa jan pali pi tomomoku.
Suri la mi ampa e mi tawa wile pinan pali amo seme. O pana tawa mi! Ya
Ona li
kili
pana.
pipilin pona! Sina pana ala la mi sona ala pali! Pana e telo mute tan lukin. La ona li kama pana. Kili pipilin pona.
Pona.
Lon. Lon ya mute fitoki pona kin li kama li muti dan poka pona muti la ni ada li bani ala tawa kulupu tomo sona li mani e moku pi yang pi kama sona e moku pi yang fitoki pona.
Jan
Lawan
lama di
mute.
panai mani.
Lon, ona li pona mute. Ona li pona mute. Lon. Tan nila, yan ale pi ma Kolowato pi toki pona di sona ala e sama lon tempo pinita so ona li kama sona e sama la ona li pali e kulupu li pi ilo siko. Li pilin pona ano seme on li kulupu lon tempo wana motu. Sona mi la on li toki mute la li awana la toki mute. Taso musi mute la ni li ken kama lon. Musi mute la yan pi mute ni li sona e toki pona li dan ma sama. Lon lili la mi wile sona ni lon poka pi mami la yan pi mute seme li sona kena sina o tawa mami yan Sonja o o tawa ma mute o kama e kulupu mute.
Mi olin e tawa. Mi wile tawa ma ale. Taso
Tempo lili.
tempo li lili.
All right, English time. Before we jump into the Q&A-ish-esque segment, we're going to basically explain how this is going to go. So there is a transcript of the talk available at this nice link, tokipona.org/transcript _Sonja_Lane_roundtable.pdf. It's also available on Sonja's website. You know where that is. We're going to just go through some highlights of the transcript of the talk one by one. So, without further ado, and please jump in if any questions on your own. We both have eyes on the chat. I guess my first highlight is this Tokipono land acknowledgement that I gave.
First.
Which is really interesting. So from the place where I'm from, this is a very common practice. To what extent is it actually decolonial or effective in creating broader systemic change? We can debate for hours about that, but I think that the gesture in itself means a lot, especially in places that it has never been done before, in mediums that it has never been done before. So this was important to do to me. And I was glad to give it. It was also served a dual purpose because I wanted to enforce to people that Tokipono was a real language before we started the thing. Actually, you remember, right? Like, not a lot of people even knew what they were walking into.
Yeah, but they're quiet and they listen to you speaking this the important like land acknowledgement in Tokipona.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It don't know. I
It
feel
serves
like
as a demonstration to open the talk.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it was important to like sort of open in a good way, and I feel this was the best way that I could have done it. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. One highlight that I want to make was something that Jan Lakuse said. We were talking about the phenomenon of nimisin, and it just the topic of the nimisin eliki came up, and I just think it's interesting because every year we there's like surveys on who uses what words, and eliki is kind of like an interesting case because it's fairly new and not that many people use it, but those who do use it feel its importance. I just wanted to, I guess, like Eliki mentioned, I guess is what I wanted to point out. And I mean, there's also it's also possible to say like utala insa sometimes, but it's not exactly the same thing. But I don't know.
It was interesting that people like nimisin came up like right away as one of the main things. I think it's like something that people with who aren't familiar with the language are like super concerned with initially. They're like, oh my gosh, if they add one word, they'll soon add 8,000 words, and we had to explain that wasn't how it worked. But I think this is a really good example that demonstrates how thoughtfully the process actually goes down.
Yeah.
So this is another my second highlight. And again, I'm trying to just read chat. I like Lakuse, but I wish I had more opportunities to use it. Yeah, I feel the same way. And Mika is describing.
Yeah,
it.
Mika was there.
Yeah, Mika, good to see you. Yeah, it really did fill the room. We have another witness. You can testify to that.
Yeah, Mika was there too.
Yeah, no, all the chairs were taken up and people were just at the back, like kind of bunched up, sort of uncomfortably. You can kind of tell like the venue that they booked was intentionally going to be like a small neurolinguistic crowd, but clearly it reached outside of that. This is my highlight. Just because I thought it was an interesting interaction. So one audience member was like, is it possible to join this community? And then at that moment, I was kind of hit by a thing like, oh my gosh, am I like recruiting? Am I recruiting right now? I had this weird sort of feeling sort of flash through me. I was like, oh my God. And I guess we kind of Sonja addressed this by saying like, even just a simple admission that there's no like official membership card or anything. But that also made me sort of think about how our community is structured in such a way that it is like membership is fluid and it means like different things to different people. I don't even think membership is really a concept, like it doesn't exist natively in Tokipono.
It's not like we're like a formal organization. We're just like a cultural linguistic movement of like amorphous, and if you're active, you're active. Like that's how you join.
Like there's no 5013 that you need to like pay membership fees. There's no board or anything. And that was interesting, especially because preparing for this presentation, doing some research in Esperanto and Klingon, those are different. Like they have the UEA and they have different associations, regional associations, and of course you don't need to join those associations, but those things are important. In the Klingon community too, they have the little Klingon card, or what is it like?
There's a pin. I think they have exams and they have.
Yeah.
But I think there's membership cards and things like that. I don't know, but it's also a generational thing because before social media, the way people, I feel like some of these things like a membership card is something that is kind of old fashioned. I don't know.
At the same time, like I feel like my membership card is like some of the Tokipono merch that I just have around.
Yeah.
Like I definitely do try to signify to people who may potentially be walking down the street that, hey, I speak Tokipono. Approach me, please. Please, someone.
The Tokipono code.
Tokipono code.
I wanted to point this out. It was an audience member said that I had a stroke, so I don't speak my own language that well anymore. But what I was really impressed by in Tokipono was the fact that consonants and vowels are so accessible to all the people, spreading your language around the world. And when you hear people speaking online, you cannot ever guess where they're from. That's brilliant. And I thought that was like a nice thing about the design of Tokipona. And also it's true, I've noticed that like I've met people through Tokipona, and then only like, let's say later when we're speaking English, I'm like, oh, you're from the UK. I didn't notice that because in Tokipona, like the accent doesn't carry over like Tokipona is. So I don't know. That's something that I noticed.
Just looking at chat, Yan Alola asks, when did you first realize?
Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm reading a different chat. Sorry, repeat what you said.
When did you first realize that Tokipono was a phenomenon that was catching on, resonating with a lot of people, and what were your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I think from the very beginning, like in like 2001, like when it was like a website, like people, there was interest, but it just scales so much now that so much time has passed, that momentum has been able to make the language grow so much in terms of community and output. And so when did I notice? I don't know. Like maybe, I mean, there are certain turning points and milestones, like maybe like Yan Misali's like putting a spotlight on Tokipona definitely made a big impact, I think.
I think it's more visibility, especially when we like kind of evolved along with the internet. So as like social media, like this idea of like like social capital or social currency, like it started to become a more trendy topic. I think that's like that point where it like the equivalent for that may have been like to see it referenced in many like journals or something back in the day, like with Esperanto. But now this is like the new medium, the new technology age. Kalasowalo has posted, I've got my Tokipona membership card right here, and it's a pin with Kieta Sentakuro on it.
Oh, I
Yes.
love it. Yes, I see it. And also,
Yeah.
someone was asking if I had a stroke. But it was not me. It was someone from the audience who was in that.
Do you, either you or both of you, have plans to speak at other places or colleges? So
That's a good question. This was done by invitation, so they initiated it, and then I replied and said, "Sure." Like I'm not used to public speaking, but but I'll come because it'll be fun and it'll be good for Tokipona, and it'll be interesting to meet new people. And I mean, it's something we could maybe think of discussing with more institutions and having something like this more often.
I feel like now that you've done it once, you know what to expect. So you'd
Yeah,
definitely
that's
be
true.
more open to it should institutions approach their invitations. This is my highlight. So the talk closed with a sort of like rundown by faculty member Laura Michaelis, Dr. Laura Michaelis. And she did like I initially did not resonate with her speech at all. I encourage you to read it in the transcript because she like immediately goes for the Orwellian sort of characterization of Tokipona. And initially, but I was just reading her in bad faith initially.
She was just dispelling that. Like, I think she was just dispelling that common myth that of the 1984 or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so she talks about it, but then she kind of, this was her sort of final sort of thought, was that it's the analytic encoding that explodes and pulls out its conceptual guts, laying it bare for consideration. She characterizes that as a liberating act in Tokipona itself, as a liberating ideology. The fact that we don't need to rely on like additive morphemes in a way becomes in itself like this sort of thesis about what like it's like a total revolt against any conception of what like elevated language is or lower, like it totally, because I feel like in English, right, the more words that we like, if you just think about how medical conditions are labeled in English with the different words that are slowly put together, like it has to be one unit for medical jargon. In a functional way, yes, that's the way it has to be. But
like an acronym or something like that, or
yeah, not even an acronym, but just like, for example, osteoporosis. Like there's so many different little like aspects in there that create that word, that signal to people what that word means. But Tokipona rejects the idea that it has to be a unit, that things have to be concrete in themselves. So I don't know.
I thought this was really positive. Like, it's like, yeah, Tokipona is a liberating ideology. I guess it's something that I noticed during during our time there, is they talked a lot about ideology and how different languages have ideologies, and I never thought about that in that way. But I'm happy that Tokipona has a liberating ideology from the perspective of this linguist.
Let's get to your last highlight.
Yes, this was something that Jan Lakuse said, and I thought it was a good description of kind of like the Tokipona phenomenon. On the topic of styles of Tokipona, I wouldn't say there's necessarily dialects that have developed, but certainly as people have spent more time in spaces with each other, different norms emerge, and those norms change a bit over time. I think Tokipona has a very sort of cyclical nature where people will join and people will leave. It's sort of like a whole ship of Theseus situation. So if you read Tokipona documents from back in the day, I'll notice things like, oh, I wouldn't do that. I would do this differently today. But it's interesting how people have their own approach to it, and there's no one authoritative Tokipona. It's like belongs to everybody who uses it. I don't know. I thought that was a cool description of our culture.
Yeah, I felt like it was important because it was also one of the things that Laura Michaelis kind of propped up, is this idea that within Tokipona, it's exactly like any other language where there's prescriptivism and descriptivism and different trends along that, and we are definitely not immune from even,
Every language community has these trends, and yeah.
Yeah. We're getting a request to have your opinion on the word lonsi.
Okay, Sonja, do you know of Lonsi? If you, I know of it, but I haven't started using it yet because I'm still studying it. That's my opinion of Lonsi. But yes.
Wonderful. I believe I saw it. I think there was another person who had mentioned that reversely, while definitely there are some times where you can't tell a person's like land of origin or original dialect, there's also times that you definitely can tell. I definitely make fun of Munkekan-san for sounding like he's from Texas sometimes. But I think, I don't know, like
I've heard
different
that's such a good point. Yeah, there are good counterpoints to that because, like, yeah, I've heard a German speaker with like a particular pronunciation that I was like, oh, that person's German. That's happened to me before.
You're the only person to ever say that, says Munkekan-san. Bet.
And there was talk of pins. Yeah, I like bringing to conventions and gatherings little like a bag full of tokipona pins, and I try to give them out. I don't always do that, but I sometimes do that because it's fun to share little gifts and.
Yes, and Munkekan-san also brought attention to the fact that there is a sale on TeePublic, which is the official merch store. Also asks Sonja, do you have any plans to introduce more merch to the store?
Yeah, just talk to me if you have something. If you have like a design that's popular that a lot of people like, approach me and show me like, oh, look, this got a lot of stars or whatever, and you know, if we both like it and the community likes it, we can definitely. It's a lot of the things in the merch store are community made, so it's a collective effort.
Yamika asks, how okay with Sonja and Lakuse would be with me sharing the pictures I have from the event here? I would say just blur out faces if you're going to do that. Thank you, Mika.
All right, good question. Yeah, that's a good answer. Oh, and there's the merch store. Yeah. One thing I like to mention about the merch store is if you get T-shirts, wash them by hand. I like to because if you wash them by machine too many times, they will fade.
Yep, I have witnessed this firsthand. Any more questions? We have we have 2 more minutes left before we have to dip out.
That was a good question about should we repeat that? Like, should we like go to other universities and see if they're interested? I feel like the request has to come from them first, though, but I don't know.
Yan Ewalanten asks, was Tokipona always a real language that was seen or was there a point where it was more of just an interesting idea or plaything? If not, when did it start being, quote, real?
I don't know. It's like do you have a perspective on this, Yan Lakuse? Because I feel like I don't know what real like one of the words I made in Tokipona is like poe, which means something is not real, and it's like sometimes I don't know if things are real or not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, I had to see it in action. That's sort of why I opened up by doing a whole spiel of Tokipona. I have to see it myself. So I was part of the Rob Words video. Many people remember that. And one of the main criticisms of that is that, oh my gosh, you can't say anything in this. But I feel like if we had just had a sample of Tokipona spoken fluently
in a real situation,
that would have negated most of those comments that were seen there.
Yeah, like at what point does a language become real? I guess when it has momentum and speakers and continual growth. I mean, it's a real.
Yeah, I feel like the word "real" itself is also like fake because for so long, like we've judged what real is based on colonial standards, and we can do with those out the door. All languages are real. If you make up I don't know, Morse code is a real language. Let's go reverse. Let's go in the opposite.
If it's used, then it's like yeah.
Okay.
That was our story about the trip.
That was our trip presentation. Thank you everyone for coming. Sino po namuti yan Sonja o ali o po na